What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Filsinger Games Character Spotlight with Mike and Broc.
I'm Mike.
I'm Broc, and for 2 weeks in a row, we're joined by Jeff Manning,
How's it going?
whoever that is. Tonight, 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 we're going to be talking about another Legends of Wrestling character, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, chosen by Jeff.
Superfly.
He had a very interesting career.
He did.
Yep. I still remember one of the first times I saw him. It was a WWF. I didn't see any of his early stuff being in Canada. And yeah, he was in WWF, and I remember he was just wrestling a jobber, but I just remember him coming off that top with the splash, and that was amazing, especially for back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people mention the match versus Bob Backlund in the steel cage being their first memory of like a high flying, where he flew off the cage
Yeah.
So, and actually Mick Foley, if you've ever read the Have a Nice Day book, mentions it as being his inspiration.
He was there.
Yeah.
My earliest memory of him is my sister and my dad went to the Civic Arena to watch WrestleMania 2 on closed circuit TV, and they brought me back a Snuka t-shirt. So I was too little to go because WrestleMania 2 I would have been 3 years old, I think. So
yeah, WrestleMania 2, I think, was like 86.
So I'd have been 4 years old.
It was 1986.
3 years, 3 going on 4. So yeah, too young to really take to something like that, probably.
Yeah. 86, I would have been 4 going on 5. So we're not that far off.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, 86, I was 80. So 84 when WrestleMania 1 came out.
So
we fought Morocco in that.
WrestleMania 1 was 85.
85, okay.
Yeah.
84, 85, it's that.
And that's when Don Morocco was a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was managed by Mr. Fuji at the time, I believe. My first memories of Jimmy Snuka, I was a big Hulkamaniac, and he seemed to be friends with the Hulkster on the show. And then he was on Rock and Wrestling. And then, of course, the old classic LJN figure with his hands.
Yeah.
Here. Those were my first memories, not necessarily a Snuka match, but just those facts. I also believe he was one of the first wrestlers I ever saw wrestle barefoot. I mean, he had tape on his feet, but no boots on. So yeah, that was my first impression of him. I don't know who I saw him wrestle first, probably some jobber on some weekly show or something. But yeah, he was up there. I associated him at the time with guys like Junkyard Dog and Hillbilly Jim, guys that weren't the top level because Hulk Hogan was the thing right back then at the Hulkamaniacs. But he had a circle of friends that included those guys.
Yeah, I just remember. Well, I watched it live. The Piper's Pit with Snuka.
Yep, and the coconut.
And it was funny because reading Piper's book afterwards, on how terrified Piper was that Snuka was going to kill him because he connected, like he stiffed him with that coconut. Then he just ran for his life because Snuka was going to kill him.
Which, I mean, hindsight could have happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an iffy part of his career. But let's go back because I like to do things kind of in order, kind of chronologically. We'll kick in some other things. Snuka was originally a bodybuilder. That's how he was discovered in the 60s. He was actually Mr. Hawaii, Mr. Waikiki, and Mr. North Shore.
Ooh.
So there's a little background for him. Went into wrestling late 60s. Yeah. Then he was in NWA's Pacific Northwest territory, where he held the belt as heavyweight champion 6 times. So there's a little history for you. First won the title by pinning Bull Ramos in 1973. Do you know who Bull Ramos is? Nope, no, me neither. long before I was born. Also won the Northwest Tag Team Championship 6 times with partner Dutch Savage.
That I knew.
and he had a 2-year feud with another rookie named Jesse the Body Ventura.
Ooh.
So, I mean, most people know who Jesse Ventura is, either through his commentating on WWF or later on as governor in Minnesota or his movie career. You can't knock down Jesse Ventura's movie career. He had a lot of success there.
He was actually good at it.
I watched him wrestle.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Well, you're old. Well, I will say for the Jesse Ventura, him and Gorilla Monsoon. I know Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan get a lot of love, but Jesse and Gorilla were my all-time favorite duo.
Jesse was great
as commentators. I remember him calling Tito Santana Chico, and just little things about Jesse Ventura cracked me up. He's always going to be the original with me, him and Monsoon.
Jesse and Tony Schiavone in WCW were one of my favorite combos because Tony actually knew the moves.
So serious too.
And they were like the perfect straight man and comedy.
Yeah, he was fantastic. But anyway, this is about Jimmy Snuka. So
Superfly.
I digress. So Superfly then went to the NWA regions around Texas, teamed with actually Paul Orndorff as a tag team. First television match, they defeated the NWA World Tag Team Champions Jack and Jerry Briscoe in a non-title bout.
It's a big deal.
Kind of a big debut. Then they defeated Baron Von Raschke and Greg Valentine to become the tag team title holders in 1979.
Wow.
So if you talk about legends, listen to it right there. Orndorff, Snuka, Raschke, Valentine. You got
all in the game.
Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
All in the game.
You got people here that you can recreate these matches. Now I'm going to say that, and I'm going to go a completely different way. Snuka defeated Ricky Steamboat for the U.S. title then.
Okay. Not yet, but maybe in the game soon.
He also formed a tag team with Ray Stevens, who is in the game. His career eventually led him to Georgia, where he teamed with Terry Gordy.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
Yep. And then they won the NWA Tag Team Championship, defeating Ted DiBiase and Steve Olsanowski, I guess.
We need to get that Olsanowski guy in the game.
We gotta get him. He's gotta happen. You heard it here first.
On that
Broc and Mike Talk Legends. Yeah, that's what this really is a recruiting session for those who don't know. Then he went to WWF in 1982, which most people know about. He had Captain Lou Albano as his manager in the game. Lost several title shots to Bob Backlund, including a steel cage match at Madison Square Gardens. That was voted Match of the Year by Pro Wrestling Illustrated in 1982. Let's see. He portrayed a violent villain back then who won fans because of his athletic style. In a storyline in 1982, Buddy Rogers told Snuka that Albano was cheating him financially. And as a result, Snuka fired Albano. Snuka took on Rogers as his manager, Buddy Rogers, in the game. During the feud with Albano, Freddie Blassie and Ray Stevens, the attack solidified Snuka's new role as a fan favorite, seeking to settle a score. Snuka then defeated Stevens in the majority of the series of matches between the two. He also faced other Albano wrestlers and defeated Albano himself in a steel cage match in Madison Square Garden. So there was the face turn for Snuka. Then it talks about his feud with Don Morocco in 1983. Entered the ring for a match against Don Kernoodle, recent legend, right?
In the game.
June 18th on Championship Wrestling, while Morocco, the Intercontinental Champ, was being interviewed. Morocco was enraged with a lack of disrespect and confronted Snuka at ringside, triggering a brawl. The feud led to a defining moment in Snuka's career in a steel cage match in Madison Square Garden. Man, he had a lot of steel cage matches in Madison Square Garden. The match ended in a loss for Snuka, but afterward he dragged Morocco back into the ring, connected with the most famous Superfly splash of his career off the top of the 15-foot high steel cage. Future wrestling stars Sandman, Mick Foley, Tommy Dreamer, Bubba Ray Dudley were all in attendance at the event and cite the match as the reason they decided to actively pursue professional wrestling. So it wasn't just Mick Foley.
Yeah.
You got 3 ECW originals there.
Wow.
Snuka was named 1983 Wrestler of the Year by Victory Magazine, later renamed WWF Magazine for his efforts. Then you have 84, the infamous Rowdy Roddy Piper's Pit segment. that we were talking about with the coconut.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of grudge matches with him through the summer of '84. So Snuka actually got injured, had to go into rehabilitation. WWF created a storyline in which Piper had broken Snuka's neck by hitting him over the head with a chair. And the Tonga Kid was brought in and billed as Snuka's cousin, continued to feud on Snuka's behalf. So I don't remember that. I mean, obviously. That was Snuka's original WWF stint. It ran out through Piper and then Bob Orton Jr. Snuka defeated Orton at the War to settle the score. Yeah, then the feud played a small part in the first WrestleMania. Obviously, Snuka was in Hulk Hogan and Mr. T's corner against Piper and Orndorff, who had Orton in their corner. Remember that very vividly.
Mm-hmm.
Snuka left ODF in July of '85, but he still appeared on Hulk and Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, which premiered in September, even though he wasn't a part of the company anymore, apparently. So you guys got anything to chime in about his... You guys want to chime in anything about his original stint? That wraps up his first ODF stint. Any highlights, any moments, anything?
I was very young for that run.
I remember the whole Morocco feud, and it was funny because reading about it afterwards, and I can't remember which book it was. They were talking about how he was supposed to, win the IC title from Morocco, but I just something I had read. Hogan had put a stop to it because Snuka at that point in time was more popular than Hogan. They figured they were neck and neck.
Yeah.
Hogan figured if he got the IC title, he might have to at some point, face Snuka for it, or he's not getting the fan. So he pulled some strings and had Snuka, lose to Morocco.
Well, as a Hulkamaniac, I never knew the Hulkster to be jealous, but yes, in hindsight, I believe that. I mean, it's possible. We've heard stories of Hulk, holding people down when they got to his level.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard that one, but for me, years later, like when I started wrestling, I think I was wrestling my second year, and I did a show with Snuka. And he's well past his prime. He still did the top rope splash. He was wearing boots though.
His feet had given out.
Yeah, he needed art support.
He was suddenly sponsored by Dr. Scholl's.
He wrestled a long time.
He did. He wrestled until 2015. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Okay. He wore the jungle singlet.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember because after the show, now here's something that people don't realize, but wrestlers a lot of times when they went out, they would go to strip clubs. Not really, and it wasn't to see the women. It was so they could go drinking and hang out without being mobbed by people.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, none of the kids are getting in. And a lot of the adults a lot of the guys aren't coming because their wives aren't going to let them. So they used to be able to just go and drink for, in peace, and cheap food, because wrestlers are known for being cheap.
What?
And so this was like a week before my birthday, and so we're all in this bar, and the bartender recognizes the owner of the strip club recognizes Jimmy Snuka, and he comes over. And he's like, hey, and he brought us some pictures and some wings. And then Jimmy lights up a joint. We're inside. Smoking's allowed back then, but he broke out a joint. And the owner's like, eh. And it was probably as thick as my thumb. And he just starts passing it around our little table. And he goes to me, and I still remember, I'll see if I can get my Jimmy Snuka voice. He goes, hey, brother, it's your birthday. Okay. So I, partook because, I don't normally do it, but hey, if Jimmy Snuka passes you the devil's cabbage.
Oh, gosh.
But I still remember that clear as day. Hey, brother, it's your birthday.
Funny you remember it clear as day because you were obviously stoned. That does not meet the Broc Atkinson don't do anything inappropriate status.
I did something inappropriate.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was illegal wherever you were because Canada allows everything. But anyway,
Sure.
So next in his career, he went to New Japan Pro Wrestling for a couple years and then appeared in AWA. Replaced Jerry Blackwell as Greg Gagne's partner to defeat Bruiser Brody in the game, and Nord the Barbarian also in the game, in a tag team cage match at Wrestle Rock 86.
That was
So he went,
AWA, I think, right?
yeah, AWA.
Yeah,
He
I saw
split
that.
time between AWA and New Japan for about 4 years roughly. Split time there pretty equally. He had a feud in AWA during that time with Colonel De Beers, who portrayed a racist and looked down on Snuka because of his skin color, if you remember that.
Yeah, and the AWA wouldn't allow him to go off the top rope, so he had to go off the second turnbuckle.
So dumb.
In all Japan, when he'd appear there, he often teamed with Tiger Mask. There's another tag team for you. Came back to WWF in '89. Made his television return at Saturday Night Main Event 21, defeating Boris Zukov in the game. After a brief feud with the Honky Tonk Man, Snuka made his in-ring pay-per-view debut at SummerSlam against $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase in the game.
You
get the theme here. It's really just amazing how many people. I mean, if you just told me back in the day when we had Greg Valentine and King Kong Bundy that this is what was going to come from it, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's really just a testament to their fortitude in coming through and getting all these guys over the years.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's not easy.
Snuka lost the match by a countout as a result of interference from Virgil
in the game.
There we go. Yes, we're gonna have people chiming in. That's gonna be comments all through the thing. He's in the game. In the game. It's like, oh wait, we can't steal that. That wasn't that the old EA Sports.
Yeah, it's in the game.
In the
game. Sorry. So anyway, 1989, Snuka was put into a spot like many veterans before him, being used to put over younger talent such as Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig.
In the game.
And at the Survivor Series, Snuka and Hennig were each the final remaining members of their teams, with Hennig pinning Snuka to win the match for his team.
Ooh.
In January of '90, Snuka made his Royal Rumble debut, lasting 17 minutes and eliminating 2 competitors before being eliminated by the eventual winner, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, I'm throwing you out, brother. How about that? Snuka had his first WrestleMania match, WrestleMania 6, where he was defeated by Rick Rude, who, when the Intercontinental Championship was vacated after WrestleMania, Snuka entered the tournament to crown a new champion, but was eliminated by Mr. Perfect. At the November Survivor Series, Snuka joined Jake Roberts and the Rockers in a losing effort against Rick Martel, the Warlord in Power and Glory. March 24th, 1991, Snuka was the first opponent to be defeated by The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Started the undefeated streak, WrestleMania 7. 1992 Royal Rumble, which I'm actually wearing the shirt of right now. It has all the participants, including a Jimmy Snuka.
There he is. There he is.
Right next to The Undertaker. Anyway, January 92, he competed in the Royal Rumble. That was the year of the vacant WWF Championship, but he was eliminated after only 3 minutes by The Undertaker. Snuka then left the WWF soon after. His last recorded match was a loss to Shawn Michaels in February of '92. So then, do you guys know where he went to?
Was it ECW?
He also competed in NWA Eastern Championship Wrestling, which
was the first world champion there.
Yep. See, I was getting to that. ECW career, Snuka once again returned to WWF on September 25th, 1993, defeating Brian Christopher at a Madison Square Garden house show. He was on television 2 nights later, defeating Paul Van Dale. No clue.
Gotta get him for the game.
I gotta get him for the game, guys. Paul Van Dale. Not in the game. Following week on Raw, Snuka participated in a battle royal for the vacant Intercontinental Championship, but was eliminated by Rick Martel, and then he departed the company again. Eastern Championship Wrestling. Let's talk about it. At the time, it was actually NWA Eastern Championship Wrestling. It was connected to the NWA affiliation. 1992, he joined the organization with fellow veterans Don Morocco and Terry Funk. Snuka made his ECW debut as a fan favorite. Won the first match of Battle Royal to qualify for the championship match against Salvatore Bellomo.
Not in the game.
Not in the game. The winner of the Battle Royal immediately after Snuka defeated Bellomo to become the promotion's first heavyweight champion. Do you know how long the championship reign lasted?
It wasn't very long.
1 day.
Yeah.
A day later, he lost the title to Johnny Hotbody. Not in the game.
Yet.
Yet. We need a Johnny Hotbody card. Anyway, he came back to ECW July 14th. He defeated Hotbody to regain the heavyweight championship for a second time. Made a successful defense against Mr. Sandman on July 15th. Apparently, he was very official back then, Sandman was, believe it or not. Snuka held the title for 2 months, defeating challengers like Super Destroyer #1 and King Kalua before losing the title to Don Morocco on September 30th. Snuka unsuccessfully challenged Morocco for the title in a rematch on October 24th, after which he turned villain by feigning confrontation with color commentator Stately Wayne Manor and then attacking ECW owner Todd Gordon with a chair. Snuka took on Hunter Q. Robbins III as his manager and closed the year with a loss to Davey Boy Smith. So a few things here. I knew Snuka was an ECW champion. I knew he was the first ever. Did not remember Don Morocco being ECW champion. I got to be honest. Just because it's not really a trivia question. So.
Yeah, I don't even remember him being there at all.
Yeah, so apparently he took the belt from Snuka on his second reign. The 2 Snuka losses were to Johnny Hotbody and Don Morocco.
And The Rock, Don Morocco.
Yeah, The Rock, Don Morocco. I remember that. I also did not know Davey Boy Smith wrestled there. So there you go.
That's back when it was still pretty much just a straight up indie promotion.
Yeah, and it was Eastern Championship wrestling.
Right.
It had not gone extreme yet.
No.
It wasn't big. It didn't have a TV rights. I do remember.
It did have TV because we got it.
Yeah, it had TV.
Well, not like a big. It wasn't. It wasn't syndicated. Let's say.
No.
And I remember reading about it in PWI. I remember seeing the Jimmy Snuka Eastern Championship Wrestling champion. That's where I recall it from. I was a big PWI fan.
Me too.
I mean, I'd say most of people that are old school players of Champions of the Galaxy probably were, because that's where the ad was.
That's where we got it. Yeah.
I think Thomas Keane. I know I posted it about 3 or 4 years ago, and then Thomas Keane just posted it again.
Yeah,
memories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then Snuka had a reign as the television champion also there. He became a member of Paul E. Dangerously's new faction, Hot Stuff International. Won an 8-man tournament for the vacant television championship by defeating Larry Winters, the undefeated Tommy Cairo, and Glenn Osborne. I could just be making these names up at this point. You wouldn't really know. Snuka frequently teamed with stablemates Eddie Gilbert and his now stablemate Don Morocco. So he teamed with Morocco some too there.
In the game.
Yep. Made his first television defense against Osborne on May 25th. Retained. Snuka successfully defended the title against J.T. Smith.
Yeah, you don't have to read his every.
Oh, I'm reading it. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about Jimmy Snuka. I'm a historian of the game. I'm learning about it as I'm discussing it. Anyway, I won't cover everything, I guess. Sorry. Somebody's bedtime, probably. Snuka lost the title to Terry Funk in a steel cage match at NWA Bloodfest.
Ooh.
So they were still associated with NWA at the time. His next notable match was the night the line was crossed against Tommy Dreamer in a supposedly infamous match, because during the match, Dreamer kicked out of a pinfall attempt by Snuka after a Superfly splash, making one of the very few times in wrestling history that anyone kicked out of Snuka's finishing move. So Tommy Dreamer, folks.
Tommy Dreamer.
Of all people. Wow. So, anyway, Snuka still managed to win by delivering 3 splashes. I built you up just so I could break you down. But anyway, so there's that. Yeah, Snuka wrestled his last ECW match at Hardcore Heaven in August, where he and Taz picked up a tag team victory over the Pitbulls. So, ECW was then taken over by Paul Heyman, who renamed it Extreme Championship Wrestling. So no longer was he there.
Yeah, see, I remember.
Go ahead.
We did a Canada Cup one year. So, there's 4 brackets, and one of the brackets I put legends in there. One of the legends I put in was Jimmy Superfly Snuka. So he won his bracket, and then he ended up. I think he won the Canada Cup because Jimmy Snuka's card in a cage match is 5 downs on level 2 because he's got 3 downs anyway, and then he's got an into the ropes and into the turnbuckle. So he's just in a turnbuckle in a torture chamber match.
Yeah.
He just literally unleashes hell, plus a +3 finisher. It's so he was just the most lethal guy. And I remember Tom's watching the match, and he's like, because a legend beat a GWF guy, and he's like, "Yeah, this shouldn't happen." We're like, "Well, it's a torture chamber, Tom.
Yeah. It's dice.
Yeah, it's dice. Plus, when you give a guy 5 downs,
Yeah.
there's a good chance he's gonna win."
Yep.
Did you don't have a Legends Fed, do you? Or did you use them at any one point?
No, I don't. I just collect Legends. I don't play it that much.
I used to play it originally, and I used Jimmy Snuka back then. He did well. He was mid-card for me. I think he had a title shot or 2 back in the day, but it's been a long time since I played that, and I didn't keep record of it. I mean, I've long since lost my Legends Fed, but I know I used the card, and he was the guy I pushed some.
Yeah, I used them in my first Legends Fed. I used them, and he didn't do well in singles, but I put him in a tag team with King Kong Bundy, and they won my NWA tag titles. Surprisingly weird but good team.
Yeah.
Well, you got a fast guy, strong guy, and they did well. And then I ended up doing a restart, and I can't remember and it'll be starting up soon. And I can't remember if I have Snuka in my because I'm bringing out 40 wrestlers. I can't remember if I have Snuka in that 40. I probably do because I liked watching him when he was younger. This is before I knew that he possibly killed a person.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten there yet, but I was gonna get there.
Okay, you get there.
No, I mean, I'm pretty much done with his career for the most part as far as wrestling. I did want to mention that he did have 2 random times he was in WCW. He did a Legends match, a Legends reunion match in Slamboree at 93. It was him, Don Morocco, Dick Murdoch against Wahoo McDaniel, Blackjack Mulligan, and Jim Brunzell that wrestled to a no contest. Talk about random.
Yeah.
And then he also appeared in a Nitro on 2000, January 10th, 2000, where he just gave Jeff Jarrett a Superfly splash off the top of a steel cage. Because nothing says random like WCW in 2000. Then he wrestled independently for a long time, until 2015, actually. He did have a couple sporadic WWE appearances. He was put in their Hall of Fame in 96. Then he competed at the Survivor Series in 96. A lot of other Legends stuff. He was attacked by Jericho during a parody of Piper's Pit in 2009.
I remember that.
Yeah.
To set up the Mickey Rourke thing.
Yeah. So his personal life, as alluded to, some things to be not so great about him. He did write an autobiography called Superfly, the Jimmy Snuka story. Came out in 2012. He does have a son and a daughter that both were wrestlers.
His son, I remember, because he was part of like a 50s
Deuce and Domino.
Deuce and Domino. Yeah. Then you got Tamina, of course.
Yeah,
still with the company.
She's been around longer, actually, in the company than his son made it.
Yeah, because Tamina and Nia Jax were a tag team or something like that.
They were for a little while.
Yeah.
So,
two big women.
Yeah. Well, Tamina's nowhere near as big as Nia Jax.
No.
But then, like you said, there was the whole thing about murder allegations. I mean, to summarize it, if you guys want to cover it at all, basically he was indicted and arrested in 2015 on third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter charges. The charges actually ended up being dropped, but mainly because they didn't see a point in charging him because he was terminally ill with abdominal issues. his charges were actually dismissed just 12 days before he passed away.
Yeah.
And he had dementia at that point too, so they actually had to have a trial to
Yeah, he couldn't stand in court, so
I mean, a sad way to go out, and who knows what happened in 1983. You can read about it on your own because there's a lot of stuff that go around it, whether or not
and the Dark Side of the Ring covered it in, I think, season 2.
Yeah, there's a lot out there on it if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
So I don't really feel like going down that this time.
No, we'll leave that. We'll keep this an upbeat conversation.
Yeah, so let's go back to his accomplishments. Held a lot of titles.
Not one in the WWF, though.
True. I am a big PWI guy. Like I said, match of the year in '82 versus Bob Backlund. Most popular wrestler of the year, which goes with your theory, Mike. 1983 he was.
That's not a theory. That's fact.
Tag team of the year in 1980 with Ray Stevens. Then he's got several Wrestling Observer newsletter things. Tag team of the year in 1981 with Terry Gordy. Best flying wrestler 1981. Best wrestling maneuver 1981 and 1983. They gave him the most unimproved in 1984, the worst on interviews in 1984, and the most washed up wrestler.
Wow, in '84, and then he wrestled
Wrestling Observer was brutal in '84, which I believe that was probably a Meltzer thing back then too, right? Wrestling Observer. Is '84 too early for Meltzer?
Go back to 91 or 81, and he wins the most high flying wrestler or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who else was doing high spot moves in '81?
Well, actually,
Jim Brunzell.
That was the first year they gave that award. He was the inaugural
other than
winner
Ricky
of it.
Steamboat doing the flying body press off the top rope.
He created that award.
I'll give you some others that won it close to that. The next 5 winners, we'll say, just so you can see some comparisons.
Okay.
Tiger Mask won it in '82 and '83. Dynamite Kid won it in '84. Tiger Mask 2 won it in '85 and '86. Then Owen Hart, who was wrestling in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stampede Wrestling, won it in '87 and '88. So there's the next list. Then Jushin Liger. Yeah, Jushin Thunder Liger was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row.
So all cruiser. So he's the only non-cruiserweight.
Then let's go through the list just because it's not that long. We got a little bit of time here. Great Suzuki, Rey Mysterio Jr. obviously 3 years in a row. Juventud Guerrera, Jeff Hardy, Dragon Kid, another Rey Mysterio for 3 years in a row. AJ Styles, Mystico for 2 years, which he became Sin Cara eventually, correct?
The first Sin Cara.
The first Sin Cara. Evan Bourne, Kota Ibushi. That was 2 years. Ricochet, and then Kota Ibushi for 2 more years. Then Ricochet for 2 more years. Then Will Ospreay for 4 years. Ray Phoenix twice, and then finally the most recent winner was El Hijo del Vikingo, which he is pretty impressive if you ever watched it.
Yeah, he's good.
So I mean, true to form, Jimmy Snuka might be the only one not a cruiserweight. Maybe Owen Hart. How much did Owen Hart weigh?
He was like 230.
Yeah, so he was close. So everybody else is pretty much a luchador or a Japanese high flyer.
Yep.
So very interesting. But yeah, he was the inaugural winner. But I think that their awards only go back to 1980. So it was the second year they gave out awards.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah.
But how do you use them in your GWF fed?
Oof. I think the obvious one for me is to pair him up with the Enforcers with Stalker and Wildcat and have him be a singles wrestler.
That would be good.
I'd pair him up with Caddy.
Yeah.
Some Islanders.
You can just drop him right in. You don't even have to change his name or anything.
Well, you could drop the name and just call him Superfly.
Yeah, Superfly would be a good GWF name.
Superfly with the Enforcers sounds good to me.
Superfly Snuka.
There you go. Superfly.
That's how I'd put him with Caddy.
I like that.
Caddy really didn't have anybody, so
yeah, you could use a friend.
There you go, Jeff. Bring him in as your friend.
It's not happening. maybe as a celebrity guest.
There you go.
Special appearance by a wrestler from another federation named just Superfly.
There you go. Perfect. Writes itself.
And maybe he'll show up on Broc's Twitch stream one time.
If I ever get my computer back. Hopefully soon.
Well, thank you for letting me pick the legend and recap him. I like going through and talking about the legends, and it really
it's very
is
informative.
To me, it's very interesting to see how many guys have been in this game now, and in the matchups you may not even think of that he was involved in there. Like, I didn't know it was so closely with Ray Stevens. Like,
yeah, his WWF run was toward the end of his career, it seems. Well, not, I mean, the end of his important
not
career.
the end of his career, but
his mainstream career.
Yeah, he was winding down at the time.
He still wrestled up until 2015.
2015, that's crazy.
When I wrestled with him, it was 2098. I'm sorry, 2098.
Wow, we're not GWF anymore.
1998.
Time travel. We can't keep track.
Spoiler alert: Mike Fortune, Jimmy Snuka, 2098, going down.
2098.
That time travel will get you.
1998.
I'm gonna throw you in the Transevolver. See what happens.
Awesome.
But okay,
all right, let's wrap this up.
Broc.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching. If you haven't yet done so, please click that subscribe button. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And while you're here, scroll on down to the description where you'll see our friends make Filsinger Games related content, including the official Filsinger Games podcast, Roll Up, the Legends Team's Uncharted Territory, the Filsinger Games fan cast from Grant, the Dizzy Dice from Lee Longpree. Here on YouTube, you'll find Solo Promoter, also from Grant, Dave Little's Heartland Championship Wrestling, Brad Plays 81, and after further review, wow, I'm really stuttering through this conclusion here. boom goes the dynamite. I'm on Twitch. I'm doing other stuff right now besides Champions because of computer limitations, but I'll be back soon, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's all we got, folks. Have a great one.
Good night, all.
Thanks for having me.
Later.